Good morning, everyone. So I'm just going to give this a couple of minutes for the notification to pop up and then we'll start. Okay, so nice sunny day out there, bit nippy, but oh well. Come on, Facebook, it's a bit slow. So here we go. So Marcus Paul in the morning, 2SM Sydney, has just put up a response from Services Australia with regard to all the issues with Mahalia and the card, and so let's go through this. This is going to be a bit of a long video, and I'm going to have a bit of a dig at things because the department, of course, is in denial. We can't see the card holders. We don't want to hear the card holders. And we're certainly not going to speak any of the truths of the failure of the cashless debit card and the damage it's doing to card holders. So let's get started. So Marcus Paul in the morning has posted on his page that they've received a response from the Department of Social Services on the issues with the cashless debit card. All right. The claim is the cashless debit card cannot be used to be, this is what they're saying is a claim, even though we've got proof of this, you know what I mean? The cashless debit card cannot be used to buy groceries and does not successfully block the sale of alcohol. Participants need to travel to supermarkets that accept the cashless debit card. Cashless debit card participants are not blocked from purchasing grocery items, and the cashless debit card works at all supermarkets that have an EFTPOS machine across Australia. Well, it doesn't work from Mahalia, okay? And the reason that is because Mahalia's IGA sells alcohol. He has two terminals. One is for food, one is for alcohol. Now, the problem in his store is the one that's for food declines food, okay? And the one for alcohol approves alcohol on the cashless debit card. There is video evidence from Mahalia herself, and there is video evidence from Gwyn News 7, who went all the way out there to film it for themselves. And still the department denies it's happening and is basically calling Mahalia a liar for not being able to buy food at her local store. Okay. More than $201 million has been spent at businesses that sell groceries and food. So, people shop around the country, you know what I mean? People are buying food in lieu of paying rent because Indu won't let them pay rent, so they're doing shopping for people. Indu staff tell people do the grocery shopping and pay other people's bills in lieu of paying rent when they decide to not allow a person a housing allowance, or they suddenly reset the housing allowance to zero, or they just plain refuse to transfer cash to your account so you can pay your damn rent. The cashless debit card works at the Brunswick Junction supermarket raised by the participant on your show, and there continues to successful transactions at the shop. Mahalia is the only person in that town on the cashless debit card. They've got no other person to judge by. She's the only one there. And last week she went again to try buy lettuce and tomato, and it was declined. Funny that, eh? So I guess she'll probably be going again this week and see what happens this week. Okay. It's only blocked at terminals that sell restricted items like the bottle shop in the Brunswick Junction supermarket. Well, it doesn't, because we've got it on video. Again, Gwyn 7 News videoed it buying alcohol. So it obviously doesn't. The government's just lying. You know what I mean? Because they're, egg on their face. But I've got hundreds of reports of people being able to go and buy alcohol out of card regions, right? It's not new, right? God, Rachel Seward did it a long time ago, walked into the Parliament House shop and bought a bottle of gin with an Indu cashless debit card, you know what I mean? And from what I heard this week, Senator Rex Patrick was able to buy alcohol in the Northern Territory with it. So, and a lot of card holders have been able to buy alcohol around the country, because of the Visa merchant code numbers that the businesses are using, and they can't block it because it's a worldwide technology, and a certain merchant code cannot be blocked. And most businesses under that merchant code sell alcohol. So anyway, they're not pubs, you see. Oh dear. So let's see. If a participant tries to purchase grocery items at the bottle shop in this supermarket, it will be blocked. But these items can be purchased at any other terminal in the shop. No, they can't. And again, got the proof of it, because Gwyn 7 aren't fools. They're not dickheads, right? And the shop owner knows which of his terminals is which, right? And the video evidence doesn't lie. But, of course, we can't see it. We don't want to see it. We're in denial here. We're in panic mode. We've got to deny. Blame the card holder. Blame the business. Blame everybody else. But never, ever admit that your damn card doesn't work, right? So, the claim, cashless debit card participants cannot make housing payments. Wow. We've been going through this for 6 years. Hundreds and hundreds of people. And please, if you're on a cashless debit card and you're watching this and you've had your rent stuffed up, don't care when, but yeah, they've stuffed up your rent, or you've ended up with breach notices, or you've ended up having to move, or you've been evicted because you couldn't pay your rent, please drop it in the comments here and let us know your story and which region you were in when this happened to you. Okay? Because we've got hundreds of cases now of rent decline. It's just beyond stupidity, okay? So let's go, where are we? So the cashless debit card provides participants with a number of options to pay their rent, just like any other bank card. Well, for a start, it's not a bank card. It's a Visa debit working off an FPOS system. Bank card doesn't exist anymore. I wonder why. Because that failed too. And if you go digging for the origins and who was behind bank card. Hint, hint. Long time ago, 1984. Okay, I'll give you a hint there. So anyway, let's have a look. Participants can use their card to make BPay payments or direct debit arrangements to pay rent. Okay. Not every private owner takes BPay. In fact, most of them don't. They don't have an FPOS machine because they're not a business. They're a private owner. Okay? Most private owners don't take Centerpay because they don't want the setup costs. They don't want all the crap that goes with it. And they don't like the invasion of privacy from the department, which is fair enough. Everybody has a right to privacy in this country. And a lot of people give it up way too easily. They don't seem to understand that you have a right to privacy. It's your information. What you do between you and the taxman is between you and the taxman. Nobody else. Yeah. Anyway, so let's continue on. Direct debit arrangements. Well, you have to get the housing limit raised from 0, right? Because when you first get the card, there is no housing limit. There is no ability to just use the card and do it with direct debit, right? Because you've got to set it up. And in order to set it up, you've got to send in your signed, dated, fixed lease, along with the rent certificate from Centrelink. But people in third-party rentals, right, youth who are paying board at home, mum and dad, or paying rent, right, people who are paying direct debit from their normal account straight to their owners' accounts, right, they have to get this approval and this permission. If people are living on a third-party rental status or they're paying cash for rent, it doesn't get approved. If they're on a periodic lease, it doesn't get approved. Nope, sorry, you can't have a housing allowance. Right? I've got this very problem with a young 18-year-old disabled girl in Brisbane right now who went down there to be next to specialists. And the minute that she got to Brisbane, she got put on the card because she came from Bundaberg. She uploaded her rent certificate. Bingo, you're going on the cashless debit card. Why? She's living in Brisbane. But anyway, out of region, doesn't seem to matter. All right, so she rings up to find out how to set it all up and is guaranteed, oh, yes, no worries. No problem. Your rent allowance is all approved. 20 minutes later, she gets a phone call back saying, sorry, we can't approve your rental allowance. Your rental allowance stays at 0. So the result is now the whole family is in crisis because the family back in Bundaberg are trying to pay the rent for the daughter who's down trying to be closer to specialists, right? Who can't get a DSP, by the way. She's on a job seeker. How stupid is this? But they won't let her pay rent. So the family are trying to pay their own rent and pay her rent, right? You know what I mean? This is ridiculous. And these people, most of these people never had rent problems in their lives, right? So, housing transfers allow... Oh, hang on. I skipped a bit. Sorry. Hang on. Participants can contact Centrelink to set up CenterPay or rent deduction scheme repayments, or call the cashless debit card hotline to set up housing transfers. You have to get permission. And like I said, not every owner takes CenterPay. They don't have to. They don't want to. Many of them don't want to. They don't have to by law, right? They're not obliged to. You sign a lease, you pay how the owner wants you to pay. Most of it is direct debit straight from your bank account to their bank account on your payday, so that it doesn't stuff up their mortgages, you know what I mean? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So, housing transfers allow a participant to transfer a set amount of funds to an unrestricted account every 28 days. Now, let's get into this 28-day cycle. So, when a person sets up their housing allowance, right, and they go to pay the rent a fortnight, and it works, and they go to pay the rent next fortnight, and it works, but we don't work on 28-day months, so it falls out of sync. So after a little while, people go to pay their rent and it declines. And they go in and go, why is my rent declining? Oh, you'll have to wait a couple of days because there's not enough in your account to pay it. Where's the money for a start? Why is their rental allowance money not there? Okay. Why is the department able to force a person to breach their rental agreement? That's breaching a legal contract by denying a person because it's fallen out of sync. To set it up takes a couple of days anyway. It usually lands a person in arrears in rent. That has happened across all trial sites, and everybody's a week behind in their rents before they get it going, right? And this is just ridiculous. And then we'll go technically here. Every 6 months, the rent resets to 0 housing allowance, but they don't email you to let you know when it's coming up, and they don't tell you at all. You find out when your rent declines. Oh, by the way, they hold the declines against you as well, right? Even though it's out of your control. And then you've got the stuff around, which can take up to 4 days to get it reset, which puts you further behind in rent, upsets the owner even more, okay? And they think this is fine. We've got people who have to reset their rent every fortnight, who are on the phone every fortnight, uploading rent certificates, uploading the lease, or begging for being able to pay their parents or their friends or just pay their damn rent. You know what I mean? So, yeah, blow that out the water, right? There is evidence that the program works. There isn't evidence that the program works, is the claim. Okay? Okie dokie. So, it is also not correct that the cashless debit card isn't working. An independent evaluation released earlier this year found that the review respondents were widely reported that card participants were spending more of their welfare payments on essential items for themselves and their families. All right, hang on a second. Hang on. Okay, so let's start that little portion again. So they're saying that it is also not correct that the cashless debit card doesn't work, okay? And they're carrying on about, people buying food, bills, clothes, household goods and fuel. I've got pictures of places in WA. There's signs up saying no Indu card. Sorry about the inconvenience. There's plenty of times where it's declined for no reason when people are doing shopping and they have to walk out of a supermarket. Buying clothes, well, that's debatable because you can't buy anything off eBay. Online's very difficult unless you want to pay heaps and heaps for a postage on their approved expensive stores, by the way. All right, so the evaluation found clear and consistent evidence alcohol consumption in the program sites has reduced for some participants since the introduction of the cashless debit card by between a third and a half for card participants who drink. Now, let's get down to some nitty gritty here. All right. I'll go back to the last bit in a minute, right? Because I've actually posted the stats, all right, for everybody to be able to see. I'm sure SN7 will come up with more from their own evaluation. So, alcohol and drugs. Let's have a look. I've got 3 lots here. I'm just trying to work it out. So, alcohol and drugs, what this data shows is that 76.8% of the people, there was no change in reporting illicit drug use or behaviour, and for alcohol and drinking behaviour, the total reporting no change, no impact is a whopping 85%. No change, no impact, okay? Let's have a look here. The data shows over 45% of people didn't drink before trials begun. The assumptions being made and the LNP are based on presumption and stereotypes, not in data or evidence. Okay. I'm just going through from some quick stuff here that we grabbed, They're misrepresenting the data. The number of people reporting reducing drinking is a percentage of a small percentage, right? It's an absolute lie what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? It is just a percentage of a percentage. And when you hear them talk about the cost or something, the money, if you spread it across all, at the time, approximately it was about 10 or 11,000 cardholders at the time, it worked out to $80 a year per person being spent on alcohol. But that's as a general, if you said everybody, right? Not everybody drinks alcohol to excess. Not everybody drinks. In fact, most people don't. So they keep pushing the stereotype. But their own data, and it's there for everybody to see, right? It's a complete waste of money, complete failure. So the last claim, the program is expensive and money-making exercise for Indu. So here we go. The cost of delivering the cashless debit card is much less than what opponents of the card have claimed is the case. For example, the cost of the CDC rollout in the Bundaberg and Hervey Bay region in Queensland, nowhere near where Mahalia is, of course, is approximately $820 per annum per head, right? That's money going to Indu every year per person who's trapped on the card. Participants are not charged any account keeping fees or transaction fees, making it a fee-free account for CDC holders. So let me explain that, right? Yes, it's $820 a year ongoing every year that the person is forced onto this card, right? But you can't get away from the $11,000 to $12,000 initial setup fee. Hello, you know what I mean? Indu cashes in. Thank you, cha-ching. And not only that, every year afterwards they get $820 approximately, right? We think it's a little bit more than that. It will be that when they've got their whole rollout. That's their costings. But let's get to costings. Now, in the budget reply, costings are no longer for public release. What have they got to hide? not for public release, right? We've managed to work out they've spent over $310 million on this. All right, not all of it's gone to Indu, but there's all the other little subsidiary contracts and everything else. There's a lot of digging for some people to do out there, all right? And they've shut up shop and gone, not for public release. So you as the public out there can never know how much more they're going to spend on this program and how much money they're going to try and shove into stakeholders and their mates because they don't want us to share it. I can see that Senate estimates next week is going to be very interesting watching. And I think it'll be, I think it's about the 3rd and 4th of June, Thursday and Friday is Senate estimates for community affairs. Yes, we will be watching because that's what we do. We watch it and we take all the notes and we write it all down and then we hold them to account when they tell fibs like this. You know what I mean? But, you said this and you said that because they do. This is just getting ridiculous. They don't include the card holder in the impacts of this card at all. The impacts to the persons, their families, the landlords, and the people around them, they are trying to ignore the whole lot. Working on the basis of if they deny it all, right, it'll go away. Well, you've got over 13,000 people on the card right now. It's not going away. Just in this month alone, they've put 1,500 people on the card in Bundaberg and Hervey Bay. They're moving really fast now that they don't have a cap on the top of it, and the pause is lifted for the people that lost their jobs during COVID. And, of course, they're chasing up all the ones that they let off on opt-outs and well-being. Oh, we've got to get those back on it quick. You know what I mean? People who are not even living in card areas, and they're, you know, trying to get them back on cards because they fought successfully to get off of them. And, you know, putting people in New South Wales and in Sydney on the card when nobody knows what the card is. Denying parents from being able to buy food. Denying parents from being able to pay for school fees. Now, not every school can take the card or wants to take the card. A lot of schools do have FPOS and can take the card. But a little note that came through from a card holder this week when paying her school fees, it is not registered like a normal bank card. You don't just go in and just put the card in and do it and it just goes through as a Visa FPOS transaction. No. It actually has to be logged as a separate Indu transaction by the school. It's completely done separately so that when she goes in and pays her school fees, whatever department knows that she's on Indu, it's all done separately. Why? Don't know. But in Mahalia's case, the primary school that her child goes to can't use the card at all for anything. It's cash on everything. And that's like a lot of the small schools across the country. We're in regional areas. Not all of our schools are equipped. School photos, school excursions. All depends on who the contractor is. We've had some people say they can get them. Most people say they can't. Can't pay for graduation photos or the hire of a graduation gown if you're going through uni and that sort of thing. So what, you're supposed to not just go to your graduation? There is so many things and so many problems. And the department is banging on, staying on their script, deliberately being blind, deaf and dumb. And the contempt that they show card holders who have serious problems, but they don't want to fix it. So I come out and I yell to you guys to let you know what's going on. You know, the government is just, they're in this for the money, right? Indu doesn't have a background in social welfare policy. Their staff are not trained in how to deal with people with complex medical health issues, some addiction issues, from poverty, from people suffering in poverty, because all of this could be very simply resolved and no need for a cashless debit card. if you didn't keep people crushed down by poverty, right, in survival mode, scratching for a living every day, and that includes workers as well, right? But this country doesn't believe in raising people up or empowering them or giving them good mental health or caring about their well-being. This country wants to put a boot on people, use control, right, and treat people like shit. That's the way it is, including workers. So, yeah, go over to Marcus Paul in the morning. I'm not going to actually share the government's propaganda for them. Absolutely not. I'm happy to call them out because they cannot explain why these things are happening to people. Is it God complexes of people on the other end of the phone who are just being really mean to poor people and going, no, I don't have to approve that. Tough. I don't care if you're sleeping in your car. One gentleman that's just got off the card after going through one hell of a fight is sleeping in his car. Right? I'm not going to forgive him for what they did to Tempest, making her homeless while she was pregnant, making a pregnant woman couch surf. And the only reason why they approved some rent, and that was only because it's being drawn from her own cash portion that she's allowed to have every 28 days. Right? She can't access that for any other things for her kids because it's going on her rent, so to speak. Right? Back at her dad's. It's cruel. But her owner won't put her on the lease because he doesn't want to deal with Indu or Basics card, and he's not being mean. He's been through the whole dramas before. Rent's paid late, rent's not paid. If you saw the letter that I posted here yesterday, the owner was being straight up honest with that person. He's already had trouble in the past with person on Indu, could not pay their rent, could not pay it regularly, was always late, etc. It cost him money. So he's within his rights to turn around and say, no, I can't do this. You know what I mean? Because it's not fair on the owner. And I put that post up to show the impact on an owner as well as the tenant. Because the impact for that tenant is her and her children will be living on the street in that region. And if they don't let her off this card, she doesn't even have a car to sleep in. But due to other factors, she can't even leave town, and her abuser is in the same town. But because of custody issues going on, she can't even move away from the region that she's in to go to safety. Right? So she's caught by the court system, she's caught by her abuser, and she's caught by the cashless debit card and trapped every which way. And some other issues as well, which are pretty big issues. It's very, it's just ridiculous what they're doing. But what can we keep fighting, and we keep standing up for these card holders. And when we put the call out, you guys stand up with us, because we're not going to stop. I'm not going to let them get away with this crap. It is not working, right? But we saw in Bundaberg, with all of the media and the propaganda to get it in here, one of the biggest issues was, it may seem trivial, but if somebody dared write on against the card on any of the media platforms, if anybody voiced an opinion on Keith Pitt's page or anything like that, they got deleted, right? He won't speak to people, he won't meet with people, and he won't explain anything to anybody, and his staff just send people to Centrelink or ring the hotline number. He doesn't want to deal with it. But it showed that he's prepared to throw half of his community under the bus. He doesn't care. And he ignores people that are on Social Security or people he deems as second-class citizens. Because when they delete your comment off their Facebook page and block you, they are silencing your voice. As part of a community, as part of a democracy, you have a right to be able to say something. Right? And as long as you're not swearing at them and abusing them, people were getting blocked for asking simple questions. Block, 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 block. It got so ridiculous that the media up here actually did do a story about it. Right? And then all of the ministers that were supporting the cashless debit card were doing the same thing. If you stump up and say, but what about this or what about that, blocked. you can't have your voice. So we've seen this in federal parliament. I move the member no longer be heard. They're abusing that law, that rule, because that rule was brought in when they didn't have time restraints on speaking, and the system would run more like the British system, where they're trying to get a bill up, and the other side who doesn't want the bill up would filibuster, which means that they would just talk and talk and talk and talk and waste time until the time limit had exceeded for when that bill could be presented, and then it couldn't be presented. So to stop that, they developed that I move that the member no longer be heard. But we now have time limits in our parliament: 1 minute, 5 minutes, right, and 15 minutes. So there's no need to use it. So it wasn't until this government's come along and go, oh, we can use that from 100 years ago, and every time Albo stands up to have a go at them, or one of the others, and what, they've used it over 250 times? You know, it's ridiculous. Just in this period, they've got a new toy to play with. I move the member no longer be heard. Well, your local LMP federal members are doing exactly the same with their constituents when they remove and delete you from being able to have a comment or express an opinion on one of their pages. Exactly the same thing, right? They don't want to live in a democracy. They want a dictatorship. Bottom line. So I think I've said enough for this morning. We know what's going on with the card out here because we listen to card holders. I listen to them on the phone. I listen, I read their messages in message box, right? And I speak to them in real life. I know who I believe, and the LNP propaganda can go jump off a cliff as far as I'm concerned, right? Yeah, it's just ridiculous what they're saying. They just don't want to acknowledge any of it. Oh, and by the way, just a word of warning. If you do go over to the Marcus Paul in the Morning page, our troll Glenn Reynolds was up before me. And he's already there, ready trolling, defending the LNP, right, with all his heart and might. Dear, poor troll, poor troll. So, anyway, I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll keep you informed of what's going on. But yeah, trot over there, and I'm sure as the day goes on, that's going to be a wild thread. There's going to be plenty more information put into that thread. Okay, let's have a fun day. See you guys. Bye.